Court record says, spell your first and last name, please.
Sorry. Mitzi Roberts, Mitzi Roberts.
Thank you. Detective, can you tell us how it is that you are
Currently, I am employed as a writer-producer for a police procedural series on Amazon called Ballard, which is a spinoff of a series called Bosch, which I actually also worked on for 10 years before it was canceled.
And so you work with, now with Michael Connolly,
Yes.
who's based his new series, Renee Ballard, on you.
Loosely.
Before you became, before you started work on the Renee Ballard series, how were you previously employed?
I was a detective for the Los Angeles Police Department for 29 years.
And can you tell us about, well, first of all, what was your last assignment before you retired?
I was the officer in charge of the cold case unit.
Cold case homicide unit?
Cold case homicide unit within robbery homicide division.
Okay. And how many years did you run that?
It was a little over 3 years before I retired.
And prior to that, where were you assigned?
I was assigned to the homicide unit within robbery homicide division.
How many years were you assigned to the homicide division?
Trying to remember. I think when I went back, I was at the cold case unit for cold case homicide for a unit, and then I went to the what they call the homicide special section in, I believe, 2013 to about 2021. So 8 years.
Okay. And prior to working the homicide special section, where did you work before that?
The cold case homicide unit within robbery homicide division.
And before that, did you also work sex crimes?
Yes, the at the time it was called the rape special section within robbery homicide division.
All right. Approximately how many homicides would you say you investigated over the course of your career?
Personally investigated or assisted?
Either way, that you were involved with.
I mean, just the working cold case and just even opening a book and reviewing and submitting stuff like stuff for DNA, it would be in the hundreds. And personally investigated probably over 100 homicides.
And in terms of your retirement, did that take place in towards the end of April of last year?
Yes.
All right. Did you take over as the investigating officer on the case involving the murder of Fabio Sementilli in October of 2019?
Yes.
When you took over this this particular case, did you have conversations with the Detective Tellis and Detective Gable, who had handled the case prior to you?
Yes.
Did you also have conversations with Detective Ryan Verna, who was retired?
Yes.
As part of your investigation on this case, in order to get up to speed, did you also review hundreds of thousands of documents,
Yes.
videotape,
Yes.
photographs,
Correct.
records obtained pursuant to search warrants?
Correct.
And as part of your investigation, did you go out to numerous locations in order to see those locations for yourself?
Yes, I did.
Did you go out to the residence at 5012 Queen Victoria?
On several occasions.
And at some point, did you actually go through the residence?
I did not. I met with the current homeowner, and we were going to do that for perhaps something that an exhibit that you would like to present, but it just never happened.
Okay. And you're familiar with Queen Victoria, Oakdale, and the surrounding areas there?
Correct.
Did you also go out to the LA Fitness located at 6401 Canoga Avenue in Woodland Hills?
Yes.
Did you review the video, the surveillance video from the date of the murder, January 23rd of 2017, with respect to the comings and goings of the defendant and Robert Baker from that location?
I did.
Did you also go out to the Target shopping center located at 20801 Ventura Boulevard in Woodland Hills?
I did.
And did you go out to that location on numerous occasions?
Yes.
And on one of those occasions, did you go out in order to be able to put surveillance video, again, from the day of the murder into context?
Yes.
Did you also go out to the location with a photographer from LAPD's crime lab in order to take photographs of the location of the surveillance cameras?
Yes.
In addition to that, did you do an investigation inside the store by speaking to security personnel to see if you could obtain records of any purchases by either the defendant or Baker on the date of the murder?
Yes, I did.
Did you also review the surveillance video regarding Robert Baker's visit to that location on January 23rd before the defendant arrived into the parking lot?
I did.
And did you also review surveillance video relating to the defendant once she entered the lot?
Yes.
Did you also review surveillance video with respect to the defendant reparking her vehicle?
Yes.
Did you review surveillance video with respect to Robert Baker reparking his vehicle to the back of the lot?
I did.
Did you review surveillance video showing the defendant going in and coming out of the target location?
Yes.
There's no foundation.
No rule.
Yes, I did.
Did you also go to the location of the Ralphs located at on Ventura Boulevard at the corner? I think it's Ventura and Winnetka in Woodland Hills.
Yes, I'm extremely familiar with that location because I used to work around the corner, so I've actually been in that route multiple times.
Okay. And did you also drive from the location of that Ralph's, I think it's at 260 Ventura Boulevard, to the Sementilli residence at 5012 Queen Victoria?
Yes, I did that on multiple occasions.
Okay. And what was your purpose in doing that?
I wanted to, I changed up the route, but I wanted to determine how long it would take to drive in different types of traffic situations and stuff, to drive from the Ralphs to get to the Queen Victoria residence.
Okay. And did you also go on those, when you drove several different routes, during the time period that the defendant drove from the Ralphs parking lot back to her home on the day of the murder?
Yes, I went during the time that school was in, because that location's right across from a high school, And I remember that it would get a little busy when the students were leaving. Of course, this was a little later in the day, around the 5 o'clock hour. But I did drive it during a weekday at around the time that.
What was the result, regardless of which route you took?
It never took me longer than 5 minutes.
Did you also review some video of the victim's Porsche that was captured on some surveillance video from the Ralph's store as it passed along Ventura Boulevard?
Yes.
Did you also review or go to the location on Khalifa Street where eventually Fabio Sementilli's Porsche was dumped the night of the murder?
I did.
And did you also review the video, surveillance video from the Queen Victoria neighborhood cameras of the two individuals now identified as Baker and Austin jogging up to the Sementilli home on January 23rd of 2017?
Yes.
As part of your investigation, did you review in detail call detail records, phone records that included subscriber information for the defendant and Robert Baker?
I did.
With respect to the defendant, was that for her cell phone number 818-424-4213?
Yes.
And for Baker, did you also review phone records for 213-272-1093?
Yes.
Now, can you explain to us, we've heard about phone records throughout the trial, but can you explain to us what information do you obtain from call detail records or CDRs?
Yeah. Unfortunately, this case has made me a little bit of an expert. There's so many, but it's basically just information retained by the network provider that gives records about time, date, location that calls, texting, and sometimes data usage.
Okay. Did you also review records from encrypted applications that were used by the defendant and Robert Baker?
I did.
Did that include encrypted app records from a company called Viber that was utilized by the defendant and Baker prior to the murder?
Yes.
And did you also review records relating to WhatsApp that they used after the murder?
Yes, I did.
All right. In terms of these encrypted applications, in your experience, are encrypted applications commonly used by criminals in order to prevent law enforcement from being able to discover the content of their communications?
Section, no foundation, speculation.
Overruled.
Yes.
Did you also conduct a timeline analysis for the date of the murder, January 23rd of 2017?
I did.
Did you create a communications timeline based on your review of call detail records and the Viber records, in this case, for the date of the murder?
Yes, and I believe it also includes some records from video surveillance and things such as that.
I'm going to show you what's been marked previously as Exhibit 160, which is 4 pages in length. Tell me if you're familiar with this document.
Yes, this is the timeline that I created.
Now, did you also work with me along with a graphics design expert to create a timeline of what you reviewed in terms of the evidence of January 23rd of 2017 in order to create a demonstrative exhibit for the jury.
Yes, I did.
No foundation, no expert.
So roll.
Did you provide him with various records and surveillance video, including the timeline you created that we see in Exhibit 160?
Yes.
Did you provide him with video from, for instance, the LA Fitness surveillance video we discussed?
Yes,
Did you provide him with video from Target?
I did.
Did you provide him with the surveillance video from the Rouse
Yes.
and the Queen Victoria jogger video?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have a PowerPoint presentation that is for the day of the murder from 6 in the morning till 10 at night. I believe it's been saved onto a flash drive that's been previously marked as Exhibit 158.
58?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Detective Roberts, what we see on the screen in front of you, and I also am going to point out, I believe there's a pointer around there. Here, this thing.
Oh.
And it extends. And you can, I'll ask you certain questions and ask if you can show us what that means. But the top left corner where it says Sementilli residence, what does that section of the presentation indicate?
That at 6 in the morning at this timeline, that is the people that we know were in the house at the time, which was basically the entire family at the time. It doesn't necessarily represent where they were in the house. It's just where Ed Cozen placed them, but they all are in the house.
Ed Cozen, who is seated here to my left, is the graphics design expert that you worked with, and as we talked about just before the break, provided him various records and surveillance video and information to be able to create a timeline for the jury on this case.
Correct.
All right. And at the bottom of the screen here, we see that it goes from 6 a.m. until 10 p.m. So that would be for the day of January 23rd of 2017?
That's correct.
And the timeline that we see represented in the center of the screen, where it says 6 a.m. and then 8 a.m., that would be relative to the highlighted portion in white that we see on the bottom timeline. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So within this timeline, color-coded for various events, does that include the surveillance video relative to the day of the murder of Fabio Sementilli?
Yes, it does.
All right. So let's start. Could you please? All right. Now, what do we see here in the top right corner?
That comes from the Viber records, and so at 6:50 with 19 seconds in the morning, Monica sends a Viber message to Robert Baker.
Okay. And is that also represented on the timeline that we see in the center of the screen, where it has a purple section that says Viber and an N with an arrow towards B at 6:50 and 19 seconds?
Yes, and it will look like that throughout the presentation when Monica sends a Viber message to Robert Baker.
Okay. And if it's the other direction going from Baker to the defendant, then we would see the red highlighted area that appears to be originating from her phone towards his phone. It would be the opposite.
That's correct.
Okay. If you can move to the next. Okay. And what is it that we see here represented in a peach color at 7:29 in the morning?
This is at, actually on mine it says 7:28 a.m.
Sorry, I can't see.
Isabella, the daughter of Fabio and Monica, is leaving the residence in her vehicle.
And I believe there's an embedded video.
Yes, there is.
Play that, please. And what do we see here?
This is a graphic that just sort of orientates the jury to the streets and the way that Isabella is traveling before it segues into the actual video.
Okay.
And then it's always going to identify the target that we want to bring the jury's attention to by the circle.
Okay. And in this, we know that the surveillance video we've already heard testimony from the day of the crime was an hour fast. So is the actual time represented in the bottom left corner where it says 7:28 a.m.?
That's correct. We've pointed out the correct time there. There were numerous videos where the timing was off, and we adjusted, and always the timeline is in the correct time as the day went.
Okay. And was this, in fact, Isabella's vehicle leaving that day from Queen Victoria, taking a right onto Oakdale?
Yes, correct.
And that's represented inside of the circle?
Yes.
Okay. Let me have the next, please. And what do we see here occurring at 8:05 in the morning?
So the green color is the color that Ed chose to represent the housekeeper,
That was Delia Rivera?
Delia Rivera, and she arrives at the Sementilli house at 8:05 a.m.
Okay. And is there a video accompanying this?
There is.
Okay.
And
And
again,
so, is this consistent, yes, with the direction of the vehicle as it came from Oakdale and turned left onto Queen Victoria?
yes, that's correct.
And what do we see here on the timeline at 8:33 in the morning?
8:33 and 38 seconds. Robert Baker sends a Viber message back to Monica, and Baker, when he Viber messages throughout this presentation, we'll see him in the green. And then, as you mentioned before, the cell phones up in the top right hand of the presentation now shows that he's reaching out to Monica.
Okay, and so in the top left corner, where we saw is documented throughout the presentation as to who's home at the Sementilli residence, now we see that it indicates Delia, the housekeeper, is at the residence.
Yes, and Isabella has left.
Okay. And this timeline, when you have the communications going in either direction from the defendant to Baker or Baker to the defendant, those are based on the Viber records. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And also based on those Viber records is that timeline that you created that we've already talked about, that is Exhibit 160, correct?
That's correct.
All right. Have the next one, please. Thank you. And what do we see here occurring at 8:36 in the morning?
This is Monica responding back to Baker. They're now sort of engaged in a conversation via Viber.
And then can you tell us what we see in the next communication at 8:37?
It's Baker responding back to Monica.
Okay. And then as we go through, do we continue to see communications back and forth using Viber within the PowerPoint throughout the day?
Yes.
Okay? And if we could have the next one. Okay, now the timeline has moved to, the white portion is during the 9 o'clock hour.
That's correct.
And what is, let's see what the next communication is. What do we see here?
So that there's still part of this back and forth Viber messaging. This is Monica responding to the I assume responding, just sending a message to Baker.
Communicating with Baker.
That's correct.
All right, so the communication originates with this one from her, and the next one.
And that's the same, just 7 minutes later, Baker sends back a message to Monica.
Okay, so in the top left, we still have the same individuals at the Sementilli home, correct?
Correct.
All right.
And again, we have Monica corresponding with.
Sorry, do we have the times on each one of these?
Sure.
This one is 9, I believe. What time?
Okay.
In 9:08 and 2 seconds.
Okay. Next one.
And a follow-up message at 9:08 and 16 seconds, Monica to Robert Baker.
Okay.
9:10 and 2 seconds, Baker responds to Monica.
All right.
9:10 and 33 seconds, Monica responds back to Baker. 9:12 and 03, Baker responds back to Monica. 9:12 and 59 seconds, Monica responds back to Baker. 9:14 and 23 seconds, Monica sends another message to Baker. 9:15 and 8 seconds, Baker responds back to Monica.
And I'm going to ask you now, does this pattern of communications between the defendant and Baker continue throughout the day, but for specific time periods where there's no communication between them, such as when they're together at the LA Fitness?
That's correct.
All right. And can we move on to the next one? Thank you. So I don't have to read every single one. So communications going back and forth between them.
Yes.
All right, now the timeline has moved to the 10 o'clock hour, is that right?
Yes.
Looks like it starts at 10:40 in the morning.
Correct.
All right. So again, the same pattern of communications between the defendant and Baker, does that continue?
Yes, it does. This is a message from Monica to Baker at 10:41 and 48 seconds.
And then again, the back and forth from
The
Baker
back-
to Monica?
That's
All right.
correct.
If you could just do it real quickly. All right, now what do we see here occurring at 10:55 and 25 seconds, where it's represented in the top right corner? Is that a basically a graphic for Baker's phone receiving a call at this point from Monica?
That's correct.
All right. And again, corroborating what we just saw with respect to what's on Baker's phone, at this point do we see represented a outgoing call from Monica at that same time period?
I'm going to object on corroborating, that's all you need.
The word corroborating is augmented. We
Right.
struck them.
So again, we saw an incoming call on Baker's phone, and at the same time period, we see an outgoing call on Monica's phone.
That's correct.
It would be consistent with that, correct? Based on the records that you observed.
Yes.
And then what do we see here represented in blue at 10:57 in the morning?
So the blue is the significant color for Fabio, and at 10:57 a.m. we see him leaving the residence. There's a video, and we'll see him pulling out in his F-150.
Okay. All right. right, so we came down Queen Victoria and then took a right on Oakdale, the same path that we saw Isabella leaving earlier. in the
That's
morning.
correct.
All right, and let's see what we have next. And now, do we have additional communications through the encrypted app Viber from the defendant to Baker?
Yes, it's approximately 2 minutes after Fabio leaves. We have a message from Monica to Baker at 10:58, 56 seconds.
And then another one, it looks like at 11:06.
Correct.
And another one, if we could move to the next. Yes. Thank you. Now looking at the timeline between 11:31 and 11:41. We see messages here going from Baker to Monica.
Yes. A series of messages.
Moving on to the timeline from 11:42 to 1 in the afternoon. What do we see here represented at 11:42 in the morning?
This is Monica and Jessica leaving to go. We know to go to the LA Fitness at 11:42 a.m. and it also has the video. And we see them traveling westbound on Queen Victoria and then making that right to travel down Oakdale.
This is looks like a convertible red Ford Mustang.
Yes, that's correct.
And then represented just 7 minutes later at 11:49 in the morning, what do we see here?
We see Fabio coming back to the residence. We'll see his F-150 turning off of Oakdale back onto Queen Victoria.
So now at that point, we see that Fabio is back in the house along with Delia.
That's correct.
All right. And what's the next thing we see also at 11:49 in the morning?
That is an embedded video depicting Monica and Jessica arriving at the LA Fitness.
And that just showed us the location of the LA Fitness.
Correct.
Going to this particular location at LA Fitness, is this the surveillance video obtained from the LA Fitness in Canoga Park?
Yes, it is.
And what do we see here within the red circle?
That's Monica entering the LA Fitness front doors.
And then we see Jessica, we just saw her car going to park.
Correct.
And then surveillance video from the interior of the LA Fitness. What do we see here?
Monica's basically swiping her membership card and entering the facility.
All right. Now moving on at 11:59, so 10 minutes later after we saw the defendant entering the LA Fitness, what do we see here?
We're going to see Baker arrive at the LA Fitness, walk in through the same front doors that we saw Monica enter through.
Again, is this surveillance video taken from the exterior of the LA Fitness?
That's correct. And this is Robert with the green circle, wearing a black tracksuit with the white stripe.
And now if we switch to the interior surveillance video, does this show Baker entering the LA Fitness location?
Yes, and because he's an employee, he doesn't have to obviously swipe a membership card, but he comes around to the back of the desk and does whatever sort of business he has to do to check in for the day.
Okay. And what do we see here represented at 12:31?
This is an incoming message sent from Fabio to Monica's cell phone, telling the message basically says, "Hi babe, just got home."
And we see the actual content of the message because he's not using an encrypted app. Is that correct?
That is 100% correct.
All right. And so that's represented by the cell phone that we see here in the top right,
Correct.
which has the actual communication.
Yes.
All right. And then at 12:43, what do we see here?
We're going to see Baker basically leaving LA Fitness, coming outside past that desk area and exit through the front doors.
So during the period of time when both the defendant and Baker are at the LA Fitness, there was a gap in the Viber timeline, is that right?
Right, there was no messaging at all.
And what do we see here on the exterior video at 12:43 and 21 through 24, 5 seconds?
That's Robert Baker in that same distinctive tracksuit,
Carrying the same-
backpack, leaving the facility.
Okay. And what do we see here just a few seconds later?
Yeah, just 15 seconds later, we're going to see Monica and Jessica pass that front desk, exit through through the doors, and exit the location.
Is that them inside of the red circle with the ponytails going out through the doors in the front?
That's correct. Then it switches to that exterior surveillance camera, and we see them getting something from Monica's bag and then leave the location.
Let's stop the video for a second. At any point in time, as she was leaving the LA Fitness, did you see her carrying any kind of a bloody towel that was dripping blood or anything of that nature?
You said no foundation.
Total.
No.
And when you previously saw Robert Baker leaving 15 seconds prior to the defendant, did you see him walking out with nursing any injury or wrapped with his hand in any kind of a towel or anything of that nature?
No, I didn't.
All right. All right. And what is the next thing that we see represented on the timeline at this point at 12:46?
That is Monica sending a message to Fabio, just letting him know we are on our way home.
And again, since at this point when she's communicating with her husband, she's not using an encrypted app, we have the actual content of that message. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And what do we see here? Again, coming up at 12:46 now in 19 seconds. So basically 8 seconds later.
That's again Monica sending a message to Fabio. Did get it fixed?
And again at 12:49, do we see an outgoing call from the defendant's phone to her husband, Fabio.
Yes.
Okay. And then what do we see at 1 p.m.?
We're going to see Monica and Jessica coming up Oakdale and make that left-hand turn onto Queen Victoria, returning home from the gym.
This is them here?
Yes, in the red convertible Mustang.
All right, so now in the upper left corner, oh, that's okay. In the upper left corner, we have represented at the home Delia, the housekeeper, along with Monica, Jessica, and our victim, Fabio.
Yes.
And this is now at 1:20 in the afternoon, and at 1:24:28. What is this?
That is Monica sending a Viber message to Robert Baker at 1:24:28 seconds.
And then another message a couple minutes later.
Correct?
Okay. And another message from the defendant's Baker.
Yes. 1:27:33 seconds.
39, I think.
Oh, yep, 39 seconds.
And a message back from Baker to Monica at 1:28.
Correct?
Also representing the top right corner.
Yes.
And again, back to the same pattern of communications that we saw earlier that morning before they met up at the LA Fitness.
Correct.
Okay. All right. What do we see here now at 1:40?
This is Monica sending a text message to Isabella, who we know is out of the house.
At school that day?
Yes, saying text me after interview and let me know when you're on your way. I'm making fatina and corn for dinner.
Okay. So at 1:40, again, not using an encrypted app, as we saw in all of the communications with Robert Baker that day,
So,
she is sending regular communications, first Fabio and now to her daughter.
Correct.
All right. And what do we see here represented at 1:51 in 17 seconds?
Monica makes an outgoing call to the Encino Breast Care Center.
Okay. And what do we see here at 1:51 and 57 seconds after that?
We continue with the vibering.
Vibering is now a verb. So, looking at 1:53 p.m., what do we see here?
This is a instant message from Isabella to Monica, responding to Monica's prior message, so please message when you're done. Just KK, basically okay.
And again, more messages between the defendant and Baker.
Correct.
All right, now we're moving on, looking at the portion on the bottom timeline that's in white. We know this is in the 2 o'clock hour between 2 and 2:30. And at this point, does the communication pattern, again, using Viber, continue between the defendant and Baker?
Yes.
And then here at 2:03 and 34 seconds, what is this representing?
It's an incoming text to Monica, some sort of an alert, maybe through the home security system, notifying her that the closet mirror is opened.
And then after that, do we go back to the communications between the defendant and Baker?
Yes.
And then at 2:15 p.m., what do we see here?
We see the housekeeper, Miss Rivera, leaving the location. She'll travel again eastbound Queen Victoria, or westbound on Queen Victoria, sorry, and make that right and go down Oakdale.
All right. And then the communications again continue between the defendant and Baker.
Yes.
Through Viber.
Yes.
Okay, now we're looking, if we look at the bottom, it's highlighted, so between somewhere around the 2:30 hour up to 3 o'clock. Communications again
Yes.
between the defendant and Baker.
Yes, the Viber messaging continues.
Okay, now we're moving on to the 3 o'clock timeline. And what do we see here represented at 3 p.m.?
We're going to see a video captured by the Target surveillance videos of Robert Baker driving that rented Nissan silver car into the Target parking lot and park to the rear side of the lot, more the far side of the lot.
Okay. Is this a surveillance video from the Target parking lot?
It is.
And within the circle,
That's that silver Nissan Versa,
okay,
driven by Robert Baker, as he negotiates through the lot and eventually parks.
coming around, is that the back portion of that Target lot that we're going to talk about later?
Yes.
And it looks like he comes all the way to the last row of parking. Is that right? That is parallel to the 101 freeway?
Yes.
And then he negotiates and backs into this spot. Is that right?
Yes. Poorly.
And then what's the next thing we see once Baker parks his vehicle at Target?
So a little over 1 minute later, he sends a Viber message to Monica.
All right. And what do we see here at 3:02 p.m. after he messages the defendant again using Viber and encrypted app?
We're going to see Robert exit that vehicle that's parked on the side there and walk towards the entrance of the Target and enter.
Okay. So does it appear on this surveillance video that he's wearing that same black tracksuit with the white stripes down the side that you described for us at the LA Fitness?
Yes, he is.
Okay. And here at 3:02 and 20 seconds is that video of him entering into the Target store.
Yes.
Okay.
We see a Viber message from Monica to Robert Baker.
And then again, does the pattern of communication between them continue at this point?
It does.
Okay. So we see messaging going back and forth again through that encrypted app.
Yes.
What do we see here at 3:17 p.m.?
Monica sends an instant message to her daughter Isabella. Says, "Good luck, my heart, my love."
And you were aware from your review of the records in this case and talking with the detectives that Bella had an interview after school that day, correct?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, it's at a sandwich shop or something like that.
Okay. And then, do we see a response coming in?
Yes, response from Isabella to Monica through instant messaging saying thank you with a heart emoji.
Now we're looking at the timeline after 3:19 in the afternoon of January 23rd of 2017. And at 3:19, what do we see here?
We're going to see Robert Baker again captured on the Target video surveillance system, the interior, exiting the store and then walking back.
And we know he entered it just at a little after 3:02, so he's been inside the store now for approximately, 17 minutes?
Correct.
Okay. Is this him now carrying a bag in his right hand
Yes.
and maybe some keys in his left?
Yeah, something in his.
Again, you didn't see him dripping any blood or holding any kind of a bloody rag around his hands or anything of that nature?
No, I didn't observe that.
And then what do we see occurring here 2 minutes later at 3:21?
This is the continuation of that Viber communication between Monica and Robert Baker.
Okay. And 3 minutes later at 3:24, does this have a video embedded as well?
Yes.
Okay. What do we see here?
We see Robert Baker return to that Versa, get in, pull out, and drive to the very far back of the lot, like a secluded area of the lot, and park the vehicle.
And you went out to that location, correct?
I did.
And you went and stood in that actual area where he parked, correct?
I did.
And that area back there, is that an area that is appears to be reserved or used for trash dumpsters and other things?
Yes.
And is this the area as depicted here on the screen that we see right this moment that you went out and observed?
Correct.
Now, just to the left of that area where he's parked,
Yes.
is this a photograph of that area?
It is.
Okay. And when you went out there, could you see that there were dumpsters and things like that that were set up along the side of that area?
Yes.
Because you had been to that location, as you said, on several occasions.
Correct.
Just to the left, yes, here we have a close-up. Can you describe for us what you see here in this photograph?
It's like a pedestrian walking path between that that large chain link fence and the wall.
There also appears to be a pedestrian gate back there where you can pass through and walk into the shopping center in front of it.
Correct.
All right. And if one were to go through that gate at the back of the lot and go around to the front of the shopping center near Target, would you be able to walk in And let me just, if you were to walk through this area from that pedestrian gate and come down through that parking lot in this other shopping center to the left of Target and walk along the sidewalk in front, would that lead you back around to an area where there was a Payless store and something else?
Objection, no foundation, Your Honor.
You were out there, weren't you?
Yes.
Okay. This building that is covered by this picture over here.
The white roof.
Yes, the white roof. This right here. Here, why don't
Correct.
instead of me showing?
Yeah. You could sit in my chair. You want to sit in my chair? So you could go through this pedestrian gate, and of course we don't really know which way Baker came through, but you can go through this gate.
Objection, Your Honor. That's a conclusion with no foundation.
Okay. If you were to go through the pedestrian gate, or if you were to walk just straight out, would that take you out onto this main street that we see here?
Yes,
No
you can.
foundation, no evidence before the court on this.
As far as any kind of route of travel that this detective went to, so we're ruled. Oh, wait, anytime in the next 3 minutes, you need a break. Let me know.
Okay,
We got 3 minutes.
got it.
Okay.
Can you show us
yes.
what the different routes are to get back around to the shopping center if one were inclined to do so?
Yes, in fact, I did walk this route. I did it both ways. I came through this gate and also came and walked through this driveway, came around here. You walk down the sidewalk. This is Ventura Boulevard right here, and come around, and this is the Payless. And if you come through here, you're basically in the parking lot of the Target, and this is where the main entrance to that Target is, right here at the Ventura.
With respect to the surveillance cameras, did you note that they were all at the front of the Target building, looking at various directions?
Yeah, most of them are along this front. I do think that there were some that captured this side as well, maybe this part of the parking lot.
But if one were to walk either through that second shopping center or straight down towards Ventura and come around where the Payless is, that building with the white roof there along Ventura Boulevard, would one be out of view of the surveillance cameras from the front of the Target store?
Objection, no foundation.
Not fully out of view. You can see figures moving, cars moving, but it's not clear. It's so far away, it's not clear.
All right. This, I guess, is where we'll stop then.
As usual, the admission applies. You have to discuss this case among yourselves or with anyone else. If former express any opinions of the cause, it's finally submitted to you. Have a good evening. See you tomorrow at 9.